recording.
Oh, good morning, everyone. This is our first official podcast of Coffee with Mom. We are here to kind of give you an idea of why we came up with this and what we hope to accomplish with everybody. So, myself, Mom, here, and my son, Chris. So, we're about to get ready.
For
Yep,
what? We don't have a topic for today, do we?
it's our introduction.
Oh,
So, you can say why we came up with this idea
oh,
or
just
how this idea came about.
well, because we figured out that tons of people have no idea how to communicate with their parents, and we're trying to fill that gap for those people.
So, how did we come up with this idea? Where did this idea originate from?
I don't even remember.
Neither do I.
We literally just have coffee every morning and just said, why don't we just start recording it?
True.
That's kind of how it came about.
And originally, when we first started talking, it was more or less we were trying to business plan,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, and like figure out what we can do to get through this world. And then it just kind of materialized.
Yeah, it just kind of happened. Just I don't know. It just felt right. Doesn't feel right now, but it's gonna feel
Yeah,
right.
we're gonna be completely awkward for the first few times that we do this, and we apologize for that because what we thought would be super easy to sit and just naturally talk with one another, even with a recording device in front of us, it's proving to be slightly challenging.
Yeah, it's a little bit uncomfortable when you're staring at a microphone and you're
Yeah,
talking into it, knowing your voice is going to be out there in the world.
yeah. And you made the comment the other day, what is it going to feel like when we have done this for a while now and we're walking through a mall or a store and or we go to a coffee shop and we sit there and all of a sudden we hear our voices and that kind of really struck home and struck a chord because this is real. This is putting it out there. This is
Yeah.
being as raw and open as we humanly can to.
But I think it's important because the way we talk is different than any other people that I listen to, which is a lot of podcasts. And I feel like we have a way of communicating with people that's vastly different than most. And we're a more modern way to have a mother-son relationship and just communicate because
Yeah.
nothing for us is off limits. So, I mean, it's,
Well, we did say there are certain things. We do
yeah,
have the off limit chart.
yeah,
But even doing a few test runs, we found that even that doesn't really
yeah,
phase us. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, we haven't always had this kind of communication. We haven't always had been able to talk the way we talk, but I feel that,
I mean, it took 28 years, but I mean,
well, I wouldn't go 28 years. Come on
it
now.
took 28 years to get to this point. So, I mean, there was a lot. It was a very rocky relationship. I mean, I think like a lot of people have now. It's just
Yep.
they don't have a good relationship with their parents, mainly because of the two career thing that happened. It went from single family income to family. So a lot of these kids have no idea how to talk to their parents, and their parents have no idea how to talk to them because it's a
Hmm.
vastly different world so quickly. And I think that we cracked the code, and other people need to figure this out because a lot of relationships are failing between parents and kids.
I do agree, and it took a long time. I wouldn't say 28 years because that would be like you were 1 years old when this our whole relationship failed.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe 20,
Mm,
20 years. Let's go 20 years. That
yeah.
sounds a little better because
Yeah, we'll
at
say 20.
8-year-olds can be dicks.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I think that's kind of what our whole premise is. It's just letting people listen to us talk about nonsense, and then they can see that it's very easy. I mean,
hmm,
all they gotta do is go have coffee with their mom or dad and just talk.
yep. Have lots of coffee. Coffee definitely is life for me.
Mm, I think the hardest part is eliminating the awkwardness because at some point you gotta stop looking at your kid like a kid. Otherwise, it never goes away.
Correct.
And then you'll never have that relationship as an adult.
Because I mean, once you take and get rid of the awkwardness, you're able to really do the deep, hard-hitting questions that adults or parents want to know about their adult children because though we've raised them and a lot of parents right now are kind of hovering over them to keep them safe from what's in the world,
Mm,
really didn't have that opportunity because I was always working,
Hmm.
or I was always having to do something, or I always had to make sure you guys were provided for, dishes were done, laundry's done, house is clean.
Yeah.
So I felt that I was a little slightly detached and didn't know everything going on in your life. And now to sit here and have the conversations we've had at the coffee table,
Hmm.
it really truly is eye-opening that maybe if we would have if I would have did things differently, would we be where we at today?
Yeah. No, and I agree. But I also feel like we have an ability to communicate that's very strange to most people because we've even had it where people sit in and listen to us talk, their family, and they're like, "How do you guys even talk like that?" Like, and it's just like talking to a friend. It's honestly, you got to remove the parental image and the child image once you become an adult. And I think that me, especially moving away for so long and coming back, made me kind of realize that. And I mean, just I don't know. It just seems to work, and other people want to hear it.
Exactly. And hopefully maybe we can help just one person or one family or one mother son or father daughter
Hmm.
relationship out there get better than what it was, and
Yeah.
make them realize that there is hope, because when you're sitting there struggling as a single parent or struggling, as a married couple trying to make it all work and find the time to really understand what your kids need, because though they need the basics like food, water, shelter, they also need some form of direction.
Hmm.
And sometimes the direction is misguided and
I think a lot of the
misconstrued.
people that are going to be listening to us are going to be the ones that know their 21-year-olds lying to them about being good and just fine. And because most kids and parents, when they're at that age, they're like, "Oh, how you been?" And it's usually just good, just lying to their parents,
Hmm.
and their parents know they're lying. So I think if we can find a way to help the parents talk to the 21-year-old and say, "Hey, look, I know you're not fine," like, and talk to them like a buddy, opposed to just, "Okay, okay, here you go," because that doesn't work and that doesn't help anyone.
No, not
And
not when you're over the age of
and
18.
yeah, so the kids don't know how to communicate to the parents when they're that age about the shit that's going wrong in their life because they don't want their parents to think that something's going wrong or they fucked up or whatever. But I feel like we would be a good tool to utilize for that situation because I've never hid anything from you as an adult. Like
No,
if
you
something's
haven't.
going wrong, it's you're the first to know. Like it's
Hmm.
um, and typically you're the first I go to for advice because I know I can just say what my problem is wholeheartedly. Like, I mean, there's times I've had to show you my junk because I thought that I had an STD. So, I mean, it's,
Yep. Hmm.
and you were able to calm it down quickly and tell me it was just ingrown hair.
Hmm.
So it was like having that ability is, I think it's an amazing relationship with your parents. Well, parent for me, I don't have
Right.
another parent, so I think a lot of people would really benefit from having a relationship like that. Not so much that situation, but just any situation.
And I think you kind of hit it too, like when they're 18 to 21, to, starting out as an adult, they really don't want to disappoint their parents because their parents tried really hard to get them to where they are. And the first moment you walk in and you tell your mom or dad, "Hey, I'm pregnant and I can't continue on in school," and you see the just disappointment in their eyes and how.
Or even a more real situation. Me 2 years ago when I came home and say, "Hey mom, I'm tweaked out on meth. Like, what can I do? Like,
Yeah.
I need to detox. I need help." Like, that's a very real problem now. There's a lot of kids addicted to hard drugs, and how many of them can just go home to their parents and say, "Hey, look, I'm addicted to meth. I'm addicted to heroin. Can you please help me?" And
Yeah.
I mean, I recovered from it because of that, because I was able to come home instead of just continue to hide the drug, and
Correct.
I was able to stay sober now for almost a year because of that.
And some of that, I think too, part of that is obviously my profession outside of now this podcast, and being a nurse that kind of helps prepare you, and maybe that'll help along the way too, help others, because it wasn't easy sitting there watching you lay on the couch for days on end. I mean, it was incredibly difficult as a mom But as a nurse, I knew that's what you needed to do. So I made sure you had your water, made sure you ate things here and there. Made sure you were coherent for at least an hour a day talking and then just let you go off to sleep again. So,
Mm.
I mean, as a regular parent, they probably wouldn't know what to do in that situation, but maybe as we go on in the podcast and as we bring up different topics every day and delve very deep into certain things,
Mm-hmm.
then it'll give them an insight and maybe a little direction on what
Yeah.
to do.
Well, I can say because of the relationship we have is a huge part of why I was able to kick a very hard drug. Because if I wasn't able to come home and just say, "Hey, look, I'm on this. It's bad. I need to just get off this." If I wasn't able to do that, I would have continued the drug in hiding and just kept listening to buddies that were doing it. And I wouldn't have gone to a hospital because you don't want it public, and anybody on the drugs don't want to ever be caught. So the fact that we have such an open communication relationship is the reason I was able to get off on my own and just move on from it. So I think that that's very beneficial for people, and people need to understand that yes, you may be addicted to a very hard drug, but you can still go home. Your parents aren't gonna just fucking boot you. I
Correct.
mean, and the maternal instinct is gonna kick in for most mothers, and they're gonna feel loved that they chose to come home instead of continually destroying their life.
Correct.
So I think a lot of people need to understand that for that particular situation, which, I mean, it could be pregnancy too, but I know for that one's really close to home and personal. So I think that's a huge inspiration for this channel as well, because that honestly did help save my life. So just being able to communicate
Hmm.
instead of continually hiding the drug or dying from it.
And yes, there's going to be moments of, as a parent, you're going to have moments of, why didn't I see this sooner? Why couldn't I correct this? Why couldn't I get the help? But a person naturally is only going to come get the help when they know they need, when
Hmm.
they're ready to get the
Oh,
help.
absolutely.
And it's in part of being a parent and being open and saying, it's okay, and then going behind the door and crying later because,
Hmm.
well, how did I fail them?
Hmm.
I think we have to look at it as, yeah, you may have feel like you failed them. However, now it's time to figure out how to help them. And
Yeah.
how, and it's a lot of it's how would you help your best friend get through these things? So I think that's the advantage we have is though it may be, awkward to some people, how, the things we talk, the things we discuss, how open we are with one another, it may be awkward, but I think this is going to, I hope to help someone realize parenting ain't easy. Parenting sucks.
And it,
Parenting is by far the worst job in the entire goddamn
and
world.
to just put a lot of parents' minds at ease on that one, 99% of the time, from my experience, which is a lot, it's never the parents' fault why we're addicted to drugs. It's never that. It's always sociable or peers or job pressure, escape from reality because this world fucking blows. I mean,
Hmm.
it it's so many other reasons before parents fucking up. And that's a general consensus. I've met lots of drug users. I've met lots of people in that world, and from my personal consensus of it is it's usually never the parents' fault. They're never the ones that led to that decision.
But the
I
parents are always going to feel that way, though.
Yeah, but I
Part of
mean,
that
in my
comes from,
situation,
yeah.
growing up the way I did with the asshole stepfather I had and being beaten and everything, that still had nothing to do with my drug use. Like that. So even parents vastly screwing up still led nothing to drug use for me personally.
Right.
Yes, I'm sure there are some out there that have because of their childhood, but for me, I was able to come home because it wasn't your fault. You didn't fuck up as a parent. You did a very good job as a parent. That's why I came home. So, I mean, it's that I think a lot of parents think the same way you were, and that needs to be clarified for them because it's usually never the parent, especially good parents if the kid's coming home.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Because the door, you always say the door is always open. and some kids don't feel enough of a connection with their parents to go walk through that door.
Yeah, and as a parent, how do you mentally prepare for your child to just come home one day tweaked out on the drug? I mean, it's or come
Well,
home
you
just
lock up
pregnant.
all the keys, you make
Yeah.
sure that the
Well, I mean,
firearms are in the
yeah.
safe.
Well, I mean, you mentally prepare for. There's no way to mentally prepare for
No,
that
there
moment
really
in
isn't,
time.
because it literally is like drinking out of a fire hose at
Yeah,
full PSI.
yeah,
Because though part of me as a nurse knew what to expect,
yeah.
the part of me as a mom just
What I'm saying is, you had no way to mentally prepare for that day to show
no,
up. Like
absolutely not.
when that day showed up, it just showed up. Like you had no prior preparation for that day.
None.
So in that moment, you had a decision to make to either accept me into the home or reject it, and out of fear. But you openly brought me in, so I think a lot of parents need to think about that. Like when that day comes, you have no preparation, but what are you gonna do?
Yep.
Like you need to make that decision now, so that way you can determine it in the future to help your child. I mean,
Hmm.
especially as an adult, because the last thing we want is to go home and get shunned. I mean,
Correct.
because then
Because it
we'll
just,
never have a relationship with the parents again.
you never have the relationship with the parent, and it just pushes you further into the negative things that you may be doing.
Yeah.
Or in the case of pregnancy, if you shun them and they walk out, what happens with that? The not only your child, but then now your future grandchild.
Hmm.
It's very difficult. And I know growing up, when I had to go home and tell my parents I was pregnant with you, it was very difficult. And though it was a very different situation, um, I still felt, and up until the day I lost my dad, that I was wrong. I was guilt. I disappointed him. I just completely crushed all image he had of me in his eyes.
Hmm.
Granted, yes, later on he told me so much differently, but you do have that feeling that, hey,
Yeah,
I
but
screwed up.
how many years were wasted before that was clarified, though? I
Um,
mean,
you were, I want to say 21 or 20, maybe. Yeah, you were 21.
yeah, so 21 years that could have been shortened
Correct.
by open communicating.
Correct.
So I mean, that's why we're trying to do this, is because a lot of people just go their whole life without having that relationship. Because I think you firmly benefit. Like, look, when we get together and have coffee, we strategize business and future. Like, it's no
Hmm.
longer like mother son anymore. It's now taking advantage of that relationship because we can work well together, similar minds, and I feel like because we can communicate, having this relationship is beneficial for more than just communication.
Right.
I mean, it's just for simple, just bullshitting, just to gain more information from your mom or
Hmm.
dad. I mean, it's you acquire knowledge just by doing it, and that can't hurt you.
No, not at all. It doesn't, because the second you stop learning is the second you die.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, so I think it's very beneficial if people would adapt what we're doing and just talk. Like, just
hmm,
it's literally all it is just talk. It doesn't matter the topic usually. I mean, we try to stay on topic, but it doesn't always
it doesn't
last.
always work, but
Yeah.
yeah, and to get past those awkward moments, because there are awkward moments. There's still stuff that you say that I can't believe comes out of your mouth, or you tell me, or
Well, that's because I have zero filter.
yeah, well, me, yeah, you probably
I will say anything to
that was
anyone.
inherited.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So, so yeah, it's a matter of, we just have this weird, strange relationship that truly works.
Yeah, it just seems to flow naturally. But I mean, part of that is neither one of us have a filter,
Yeah, no, we don't.
and we're also both very good at discussing any topic because we're pretty unbothered by most things.
I don't think there's anything that phases us. And as we grow this podcast, as we go on and we do topic by topic and just natural what we normally would talk about in the morning.
But people need to also understand it hasn't always been this way since the beginning.
No, no,
Like
no, no,
when I turned 18, we weren't able to do this. Like
no.
this came from almost 11 years of practicing to get to this point. So I mean, I don't want people to just listen to this thinking, oh, well, they've had it the whole time. That's not the
No,
case. Like
not even close.
we didn't talk from 18 to 21,
Correct?
and then there was another couple year gap in there. So I mean, it wasn't like we always communicated. Like when I came home tweaked out, we hadn't talked in probably a year and a half, maybe.
I can't remember how long it had been.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want people thinking that we just did this out of the gate and we've been doing it for this long. Like this is very fresh. But I mean, we've been able to
I
communicate
was gonna say
openly,
though,
but we
we've been
didn't.
pretty. I mean,
But it
even.
evolved from the awkward, just I'm fine, everything's great.
Hmm.
It started to evolve into like jokingly when we were playing Cards Against Humanity, talking about sexual things, drunken mistakes, and then that kind of just evolved into talking about real world stuff, and then now it's just open life stuff.
Hmm.
So I mean, we have worked up to this, and I'm hoping that other people can work up to this too.
And
So
do it quicker than we had to
yeah,
because I feel that well,
we made the
Prada just had to
mistakes.
come in and say hello.
We made the mistakes so other people don't have to. And
Correct.
I think by sharing it, at least someone's going to find benefit of this.
And if
So,
it helps to along the way just one person, that's all that this was meant to do.
mhm. But I
But
think that,
I can't believe we evolved from our morning coffee and business meetings to the deeper subjects that we have gotten into and we've talked
yeah,
about, and so many people understand when I get to work, they know I get to work at a certain time because we do this in the morning.
yeah,
And you hear the people say at work or out and about, well, how do you guys have that relationship? And
a lot of struggle,
a lot of struggle.
like a lot. This has not been rainbows and unicorns. It's been the exact opposite.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so if we can reach this outcome from the very, very beaten past we have, anybody can. Like literally anyone can have this communication because we're the example for worst case scenario. I mean,
absolutely.
so if we can pull this off, anybody can do it easier, effortlessly. I mean, it's all they got to do is just try.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hoping that if people hear how we just bullshit normally, I mean, this one's a little bit different because we're trying to talk about what it's about.
And what we're going to offer and what we're going to bring forth.
Yeah, so I mean, after this one, I think people will just see that we're just kind of fluent in what we talk about.
Hmm.
Um, well, at least the days I make really strong coffee.
Yeah, yeah, coffee is the best.
Yeah, but I think that it's gonna help someone at least one.
Hopefully help one person that this reaches.
Hmm. And I think it will. But I got nothing else for this intro podcast.
I know. I feel like we should just go right back to bullshitting because it's so much easier. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think we should try to milk at least 3 more minutes out of this though, so we can
we
get a
gotta
nice
find 3 more
25.
minutes. Prada, can't you come be part of this? I mean, we do a Prada. She's also part of this. She sits with us every morning, and
She's a cat, just to clarify.
yeah, she's the cat. She does give us kind of cues and looks that sometimes we're going off topic. We should probably focus.
Yeah, she's pretty intuitive.
Mhm. But hopefully, once we are out there in the open and you guys are listening to us, and you'll be able to connect with us and feel the way we feel. I mean, we believe everything's meant to be in this universe for a reason, everything's manifested, and
What better teammate can you have than the person that literally created you? Like, I mean, there's no better possible teammate because that person literally grew you and made you.
mhm,
So, in my opinion, there's no better business partner or teammate because it's you just have to work. I mean, you were literally the same being at one point.
correct.
So, I mean, I think that people need to understand that and just get to the mindset that it's okay to talk to your parents like a buddy. Like it's fine. Like they're gonna actually enjoy it.
Especially as an adult. I mean, as an adult, as a parent, you've done your job. You've done as much as you humanly can, and hopefully, sink or swim, you've created something great.
Hmm. And parents got to quit acting like they were so innocent.
Yeah, no,
They,
parents are
every parent's
so
guilty. Where do you
far.
think the kids get it from?
Exactly, because your kid is always 3 times worse than you.
Yeah,
Well,
so
in my case, you were like 20 times
yeah,
worse than me, but that's
yeah,
besides the point. Semantics.
yeah. But
Um,
parents got to stop acting so innocent and scolding their 25-year-old for being drunk at the family barbecue because back in the day, those parents were getting drunk and high in the 70s and doing.
yeah,
So I mean, it's parents got to drop the innocent act when their kids are adults because we see right through
correct.
it. And I think that was a big part for us too. Is we kind of just said, fuck it. Like, okay, I'm not a goody goody anymore. I was until you were 18, and then after that,
Well,
the
yeah,
truth needs to come out. Like, because kids need to understand that it's okay to fuck up, and their parents weren't perfect.
right.
Because all they see is the end result. Like, and nowadays you do hear more and more, but of parents that were kind of shitty to their kids around my age. But um, these parents need to drop that act because I've seen a lot of them that do it and just
Hmm.
act like they had their shit together from the start. I think if they told their kids that, fuck no, like we were way off the rails, the kids would feel a lot better and they would actually make more progress through their 20s instead of what they're doing. So I firmly believe that parents need to drop that act and just tell them that they fucked up too. Like
Hmm.
this is how shitty it was for me to get here, but I got here. And I think that
So
that
now
would
I'm
be
gonna
more
help
beneficial.
you
Yeah.
do less of the shitty things that
Yeah.
it took to get me here and help you get there faster.
I think
And I
the
think
kids will stop blowing off their parents at the family barbecue if they actually
correct.
find out that they, oh wait, so I guess I'm not just a weird kid.
Hmm.
So I think that would help a lot of people too, is just drop the whole facade and actually tell your kids the truth because it helped me. I mean, it really did because when I found out that it wasn't sunshine and rainbows for you when I had my
No,
daughter,
mm-mm.
it really helped me. It made me feel better. Like I wasn't fucking up as bad.
No, you weren't fucking up
So,
as
I mean,
bad.
it's, but I think that,
I mean, I had many a parties that I
yeah, I've heard
cleaned up
stories.
after.
I've heard stories.
I mean, pancakes on the ceiling is probably the one that I totally forgot the pancakes on the
Mhm.
ceiling.
Yeah, I've heard stories from your sister and brother.
Well, there are no innocent little angels
Oh,
either.
I don't believe that they, I don't believe anyone is.
I've picked up my brother from many a field
Mm.
parties.
I mean, your brother is the first one to get me drunk, so
That's only rite of passage
yeah.
because I think I was the first one to get him and his buddy drunk.
Well,
But I think it's kind of one of those payback things
I
that,
got his son drunk, so for the
yeah, I
first
feel
time.
it just keeps
Yeah.
trickling down.
So I'm
And
sure he'll get my son drunk for the first time. It's kind of
well,
payback.
that's a whole nother story is the grandkids. But
Yeah.
even now, like how you and I are talking and being more open, and we're seeing some of the things that didn't work when you grew up,
Hmm.
and we'll get into a lot of that too with how you're choosing to raise my grandchildren in a
Hmm.
different enlightened
Yeah.
moment, which I
Hmm.
feel is making a lot of difference in them.
I do too,
So,
because I'm seeing a lot of progress in their communicating abilities at such a young age. Because even my son, who's only 6, is communicating with me like a teenager now. And not like the attitude or the cockiness, but like the openness and the intelligent questions and like asking for responsibility, which is crazy for a 6-year-old.
mhm,
So I mean, it's working what we're doing, and I'm applying it to my personal life just to prove this to people. And even if they don't believe it, I don't care. It's not. That was a bad word to use as proof, because I don't care about that. But to show people a different way to do it, like
correct.
it
Give them a
doesn't. The
different
status
way.
quo doesn't have to be the only way,
Correct.
because nobody has the same kid, nobody has the same set of challenges, nobody had the same upbringing. So
No,
there is no guide all on parenting. However, there is some pretty generalized things that can help people, and one of those things is
communication.
communication is top.
And
Like,
I think as a society in a whole, the lack of communication is out there. It's
well, I don't think the lack of communication is out there in this digital age. I think it's the quality of communication is
no,
lacking.
there's 100% lack of communication.
Because there's people just talking all the time, all over the internet, all over the people. Just, it's, I think people just don't know what to talk about.
And I think a lot of it too is they don't know how to communicate. They don't know where to jump off. They just it's easier to hide behind their little screens.
Yeah.
Whereas when you apply it out in the real world and limit the amount of screen time and limit and actually have just weird conversations,
I'm
it's
blaming memes to be honest, because
what do you mean?
everyone just shares memes and not talk. Like no one uses their own words anymore.
That is true. That is one
So
thing
like
I won't do.
yeah, like I share memes, but it's I don't get it because I see a lot of that and like I'll see people comment on memes with memes and then they'll just continue with more memes and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, this is why we're all dumb because we're not even using our own words. We're just using
No,
pictures of words. Like
correct.
so I think that the digital age, communication's out there. It's just it's not quality communication.
No, not
Like
even
it's
close.
and when you come home wearing pit vipers with a 30 pack of Busch Light to your parents' house and just say I'm here to get fucked up, like my brother does. I mean, well, he doesn't wear pit vipers, but just
And he
shows
really
up
doesn't
and
show up with a 30 pack of Bud
no,
Light
but like
either.
I mean, I remember times he'd come home and he'd be like, "I'm just ripped as fuck right now," and just sit down and chill, and like that was the whole conversation you guys would have, and
Yeah, and he really didn't talk much, and he just kind of sat at
yeah,
the on the couch, and it was it. Or when now my 18-year-old daughter comes through the door, and it's she's at that stage of rebellion, and I don't want to listen because I'm an adult now, and I'm going to do whatever I want.
and look at
And
your relationship with those two opposed to me.
I had a much closer relationship probably going through their entire school thing, whereas ours was a little different, and we'll get in deeper into that later on. But mine there was a lot closer relationship with them when
Mm-hmm.
they were growing up, but now the relationship is kind of strained, and it's kind of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, my middle son, he and your brother, he maybe gets a hold of me once a week.
Yeah. I mean, your
Or
conversations are usually very similar topic. I mean, they're
mm,
not, you guys don't really talk about an array of things.
no,
I mean, it's usually the same, like 10 topics for an easy example. I mean,
it is a matter of, can you take your granddaughter?
yeah,
When can you take your granddaughter? And I'll be back to pick her up at this time.
yeah,
So I have probably more of a relationship with her and
yeah.
can talk to her and her
But I mean,
3-year-old
even when he comes,
nonsensical.
like when he came over the other day and he just sat down and talked to you for a little bit, and then he was just, you guys didn't really talk about nothing.
No, there's
And I mean,
nothing of
it's,
substance.
I don't remember any time I've ever come by and we didn't talk about things. Like, so it's different. That's where it kind of proves our theory here because my brother doesn't really do open communication, and that's kind of a personality trait too for him. But I think he'll get there though, because he does. He no topics are off limits for him. He just won't talk about them with you because you're mom,
Yep, that is
and
true.
it's. And I've talked to him about that before, and he's got that thing where it's like, I can't talk to mom about that. I'm like,
Yeah.
why? She's probably the best person to talk about 'cause she's probably done it, like, or she's probably experienced
Which
it.
is funny because back when he was younger, he would tell me everything, including his first sexual experience, in great detail.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was a moment of shock and awe that he tried, and when I didn't react in the shock and awe, he's
Mm,
like, oh, well, this doesn't, it didn't do what I wanted it to do. But in the same sense, I was there to listen. And though I wanted to pass judgment, I couldn't pass judgment because if I did, it would have closed down the lines of communication.
mm-hmm.
And I think I've used some of that in learning from you being the firstborn and all the things that we had gone through and all the things that were taken away from me because I wasn't given the opportunity to do what I did with the other two with you
Yep.
because those were ripped away from me.
Yep.
Couldn't do that. And
Mm-hmm.
am I mad that they were ripped away? Yeah, I'm mad that they're ripped away. However, I feel like they were ripped away because of this moment,
Yeah.
because of coming full circle, of being
Mm-hmm.
able to have these open lines of communication, have these these morning brainstorm sessions
Mm-hmm.
that we need to do this or we need to tweak this in my business. And how can we make that explode? And then how can I maximize my time because you and I are both so driven to make things happen
Mm-hmm.
that I don't think we would have had that kind of thing or
No.
have this right now if we
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have had those struggles.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think I've always had the premise of open communication. You can tell me anything. I'm not going to judge.
Mm-hmm.
I may go close the door and cry behind, and that's just because
Yeah.
of
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to say that. It just some of the stuff that came out of his mouth were a little.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the relationships are so different, and you raise
Yeah.
each of them so differently.
That's because each kid's different. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's what a lot of parents don't see either is even though you may have had a kid 2 years apart, there's still a 2 year time frame where that first child experienced different things that set his
Hmm.
core personality. So you can't raise your children the same. You have to, I do it with mine and I do it just to prove what I'm saying to myself because I raised my daughter differently than I raised my son. And it's not because of gender roles. I raised my daughter differently because she's very intellectual. She's very
Mm-hmm.
into books, very into this other thing. My son is very physical. So I raise him in a way where I teach him things more like through football. I teach him to count. I teach him that kind of way. My daughter, however, she's a natural learner on her own, so she's more of a hands off for me.
Mm-hmm.
And she just gets me when she needs something that she can't figure out. But my son's very hands on. So, I mean, a lot of people look at it like I'm favoring my son. However, it's just I recognize that my children are different. Even though they came from the same parents, they have the same home, same set of tools. My daughter is still vastly different than my son, so I cannot raise them the same way.
Right. And she will debate you like there's no
Oh,
tomorrow.
yes, she's going to be a good
Eight
little
years
lawyer.
old, she's going to be probably one of our most frequent guests on here because damn, that little girl's smart.
She just likes to argue.
That she does. She's a
But
lot like your grandma.
I feel like it comes back loop to what you're talking about with how you were able to raise the other two differently, but they ended up with a different outcome. It's not to say that they also can't hit this outcome. I mean, they can still get to the communication. It's just they haven't. I got a lot of my life suffering out early in life. A lot of people got to spend 40 years to get out what I did in 5. So I think that was a benefit for us, but I agree with you. I think it all was meant for this moment to be able to talk to people at a younger age because I'm still within the threshold of the younger generation. So, and there's not, I
Well,
haven't,
you're barely in the threshold.
I'm barely there, but
You're
I'm
barely
there.
there.
I'm barely in it, but I'm there. So it's very different. You know, I've never met anybody around my age that can talk to their parents like we do. I've met a few that can talk pretty close, but
Hmm.
they're still nervous because they're like, well, that's mom, that's dad. I can't say this one thing. For me, that thought has never entered my mind. Like,
No,
you're literally the first one on the list, and then everybody else is like, well, I can't say that to that person. So for me, and I can't say parents because I don't have a dad anymore, but for for you at least, it's you're the first person I'm gonna tell the fucked up shit to because I know that it's a non-judgment area. And I know that you can either help me work through it or we can at least just laugh about it until I can get over it. So, I mean, it's very beneficial, I think.
and again, yeah, like we said, we're looking to give just one little insight that hopefully makes a difference in someone else's life.
Hmm.
So until tomorrow in our next session, hopefully you guys take what we say to heart, maybe apply some of the things we do and say, or just start the lines of communication with your adult children.
Or just take your mom out for coffee.
Yeah, take mom out for coffee.
Yeah. So,
Your
there we
mom
go.
likes anything like Starbucks, any, Dunkin' Donuts, any of that stuff. Death Wish favorite.
All right. So
All right.
I think we got a successful run.
I think we do.